Mem Vav Amud Beis will begin the Mem Vav Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Shmuel Bar Maras Mishmei Derav Teid that Tavi Meitiv Lav Deraisa. I'll bring you a proof that the fourth bracha of benching of Berchas Hamazon Tavi Meitiv is not Min HaTorah. So we had this discussion, this machlokes previously, whether it's the rice or not. So I'll prove to you that it's the Rabbanan, not the rice. Because it starts with a baruch, it doesn't end with a baruch, but it begins with a baruch. Now, if it was the rice, then it would be considered a bracha smuch al chaverta. It's in the series of the previous brachas, and it would not start with a baruch. It would be a continuation of the previous bracha. There's machlokes Rashi and Taisus, other Rishonim, a bracha smucha lechaverta, when you have brachas in a series. So the one that follows the bracha does not begin with a baruch. Why is that? So Rashi seems to learn is that the opening bracha of the baruch of the previous bracha is considered a baruch for this bracha as well. So if Toiv HaMeitiv would be a deraisa, then it would not need a bracha because you would have the bracha of the Boinei Yerushalayim. Taisa seems to learn it's not the opening bracha of the previous bracha, it's the closing bracha of the chasima of the previous bracha. But in any event, if Toiv HaMeitiv was a deraisa, it would be considered part of the series. It would not commence with a baruch. The fact that it commences with a baruch shows you that there's a demarcation. The previous brachas were deraisa. This is a Rabbanan, and therefore it has a new baruch. It's not part of the series. It was added on afterwards. It was a bracha that the Rabbanan added afterwards, as we'll see. And it is legabe the nes. It's connected, commemorating the nes of Harugi Beitar. So, therefore, that's the proof that it's not a deraisa. Generally speaking, brachas begin with a baruch and end with a baruch. Chutz mi berachas haperes and berachas hamitzvos, or brachas muchal chaverta. And a bracha achrona shebekrishma, except for these, the berachas haperes, it's one short Thanksgiving. It's a bracha on the peres. It's one short thought of Thanksgiving. There's no need for an opening and concluding bracha. It's a short bracha. And brachas hamitzvos. And brachas muchal chaverta, as we said, that the bracha of the previous bracha applies to this as well. And a bracha achrona shebekriyas shema. And the end bracha of Kriyas Shema, they do not start and end with a bracha. Some start with a baruch and don't have a chasima with a baruch. And there's some that end with a baruch and don't start with a baruch. Right, so a bracha smuch al chaverta does not commence with a baruch, but it ends with a baruch. And a Toiv HaMeitiv, it commences, it starts with a baruch, but it doesn't end with a baruch. Now, if it was a bracha smuch al chaverta, if it was part of the series, if it was the raisa, it would not start with a baruch. The fact that it does shows you that it's not part of that series, and it was added later, and it's a bracha derabana. Taisus asked the question, seemingly, the principle that we're saying here is, if it's a short bracha, if it's one thought of Thanksgiving, then it doesn't require a psich and a chasima. It's one bracha, like berachas hamitzvos, berachas haperes. Toiv HaMeitiv seems to be a long bracha. It's a long form bracha. Why does it not have a baruch at the end? Why does it not conclude with a baruch? So Taisus says, really, it is a short form bracha. It is one expression of thanksgiving. However, later on, there were additions that were made to the bracha. There were the malchias and the gemulois, and there was the tavos, so it was added on to it later, but essentially the bracha was instituted as one short form Thanksgiving, so therefore it had only one baruch. So therefore we see from here that we see from here that it is a bracha bifnei atzma. I'll bring you another proof. I'll prove that it's not the rice. because we don't say it in the Beis Hava. So the fact, now this is not universal, it's a machlokes, but from the fact that it is omitted according to one sheet in the Beis Hava, and the fact that it could be omitted in a Beis Hava is not disputed, it shows you that it's not a deraisa. Mahi, Beis Hava, by benching a Beis Hava, what do they say? Baruch Hatoy v'meitiv. So the Hanakama says, we say v'meitiv v'meitiv. Rakiva Omer, Baruch Daina Emes. So Rakiva says, no, we don't say it, we say dynamis. So he says, you see from the fact that we're oiker in the Beis Hava, it shows that it's not a deraisa. So now we're brought down the shita. So this is the proof. This is the right. Now we brought down the shita of the Tanakama that says that you say a toiv meitiv, frak the Gemara, a toiv meitiv in dynamis loy. You don't say dynamis. Ella ema afad hatoiv meitiv. He says, in addition to toiv meitiv, you say afad toiv. You say dynamis, but you also say toiv meitiv. But in any event, we see from here around that toiv meitiv is not the right because Rabbi Kiva says it's omitted, and the fact that it could be omitted is not disputed. Marzutri Klebe Ravashi, he went to Ravashi Isra Bei Milsa. So there was an Avelus. There was Isra Bei Milsa. There was a relative was Nifter, and they were in Avelus. So he was benching Pasach V'Borach. He benched Hatoiva Meitiv, but he added on Kel Emes Dain Emes Shefet Betzedek Lekech B'Mishvat V'Shalet By Loma. He rules the world. Lasois By Kirtzana to rule as he pleases. He called the Rochav Mishvat. Shakol Shaloi Vanachno Amoi Va'avodav, where his servants and everything is Rabbeinu Shalom, and he is in control of everything. And we praise him for everything. Guide appears as Yisrael, who Yigdar as appears as he should mend this breach, be Yisrael L'chaim. So that is our proof that Toiva Meitiv is not the Raisa. Now coming back, the Mora now continues with the previous discussion that we had. So we said that when there are three people, there's a chiyuv of zimun, they have to be mezamin. If two concluded the meal and one hasn't, so the third person has to interrupt his meal and answer for the other people. Now we had a machlokes previously as well. If there's no zimun, so what is birchas hamazon? So we had a machlokes is that if there's no zimun, so Rashi Shita was that, according to Razvid, that there is no, the Birchas Hazan is not said. That the Birchas Hazan is only if there is a Mezuman. If there's a Zimun, then they start with Hazan. So that was about the Chalaikas. There other Rishonim held that, no, even Razvid held that if there's no Mezuman, you start with Hazan. The question is if the person is listening to, in this case, where he interrupts his meal and listens to the other people, does he have to interrupt his meal only until Nevorach or until they conclude with Hazan? So now that's relevant to this discussion over here. The Gemara asks, now the third person, so when he interrupted his meal, he answered for the other two people. Now, where does he continue his bench? Now Rashi's Shita is over here that we're talking that this third person, he interrupted his meal, he answered for the other two people. They benched, and now he's continuing his meal. So now when he benches, he continues his meal, now he benches on his own. So now he already heard the Mezuman, he heard the Birchas Hazan. When he now benches, after he finishes his meal, where does he start the benching? Razvid Mishmei Abayim Rechayz L'Rosh. He says, you have to go to the very beginning, you have to start from Hazan. Now Razvid Shita, Rashi said he holds that if there's no Mezuman, you don't start with Hazan, you start only with Noida. So why does he start with Hazan? Because since he was part of the Mezuman, now he had a chiyuv of benching from the beginning, from Hazan. And according to this Shita that Razvid holds, but he was not yoitze with the Hazan, the Brach Hazan that the others made, because he only answered for them, and now he's eating afterwards. So he had a chiyuv of benching, which started with Hazan. He was not yoitze by answering with the others, because now he is continuing to eat. So he starts from the beginning. Rabbanon Amri l'malkum shepasek, and the Rabbanon hold, no, he was yoitze with Hazan, so he only starts from Naida. V'hilchas l'malkum shepasek, and that is the halacha. That is Rashi Shita. But according to the Rishonim, the majority of the Rishonim who don't learn that way, and they learn that even if there's no Mezuman, that you have to start benching is with Hazan. The only issue is if he's answering, how long does he have to interrupt his meal? What does he have to listen to? So they must be learning over here that he did not continue eating after he answered. Because if he continued eating after he answered, they must be learning, they would learn that certainly he has to start with Hazan, because everybody's benching is, whether there's a mazuman or not, it starts with Hazan. So they will learn that over here he did not continue eating. If he did not continue eating, so the machlokes is he already heard the mazuman, he answered, and he heard the brach of Hazan. So now when he benches for himself, so now he's benching at some point later on, he's benching his own benching. So where does he bench? So the first sheet is Rashi Mishmei holds that he starts from the beginning, because he was not yoitze with that hazan, but just simply by answering. But the halach is no l'makom shepos, like he heard the hazan, and now he just continues on with noidel. So now the Gemara is going to discuss some of the proper hilchos derech eretz, the etiquette that's appropriate for a suda. We're talking about a suda, some of the halachas and some of the hilchos derech eretz that's nagei in a suda. But even though you Rabbanan are so wise, the Persians are greater experts in the hilchos suda and etiquette of the suda. What was their minhag? Bisman shehen shtei mitais. In those days, the sudas were reclining. They had seva. They used to recline on beds, not sitting on tables. So when there was only two people, Godel meseva right for sheni loy lamalei. The first one, the most chashuv one, he reclines first, and the second one is behind him, is so to speak on top and behind him. So the Godel reclines first, and the second one is now Lamala Mimena. With Manshem Shalosh, and with three people, Godel may say Be'emsa, the most chashuv is in the middle, Sheni Loy Lamala Mimena. Again, the second one is above him, Shlish Loy Lamata Mimena, and the third one is below him. So that's the proper etiquette, that's the proper way to be mesav at the suda. Amalei, he answered him, so why is that so appropriate? If the chashuv one, in order to speak to the person, to the second person, now he's going to have to get up and turn around to speak to him. So why is that appropriate? It's a tircha. It would be more appropriate for the second one to be below him, so he would just now face him and speak to him instead of having to turn around, to get up and turn around. For the Persians, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for them because they use sign language. He didn't have to get up. He can motion and make sign with his hands, and they could communicate that way. And therefore, this is the more appropriate way. It shows his chashivas, and it's more appropriate. So that was the minhag of the Persians. When they wash, so who is the one that washes first? So they said the Persians, the most chashuv, he washes first. So he asked him, why is that appropriate? So now he washes his hands. He's got to now wait and make sure his hands don't get dirty until everyone washes and everyone's served. So why is that appropriate? The Gadol should do it later so that he doesn't have to be sitting there and waiting and watching. No, it is appropriate for them because as soon as he washed, they brought the tray to him. They brought the tray to him right away, so therefore he did not have to wait, so it was appropriate. Where does the Mayim Achronim, who washes first the Mayim Achronim? The least choshev, he's given the Mayim Achronim first. So he asked, why is that appropriate? So the Godel now has to wait with dirty hands, and now he has to wait till everybody washes Mayim Achronim. So why is that so appropriate? It is because their minhag was that they did not clear the tray from the Godel until everybody washed. So he still had the food in front of him, he had his tray in front of him, and now when they concluded the Suda, they concluded with the cotton, with the least chashuv, they removed his tray and gave him Mayim Achronim. And the Gadol was still there, he had his tray there, and he had his suda until they all washed and it was time for him. Then they removed his tray, and they gave him the mayim achreinim. He said, however, I know the Bryce, and what our minig is and what our custom is the following. How do we now at the meal? How do we recline at the meal? Bisman shem shtei mitos, when there's only two people. Godol mesa baroyish. The first one, he reclines first. V'sheno lamata meno, and the sheni is below him. Bisman sheim sholosh mitos, when there's three people. Godol mesa baroyish, he reclines first. Sheni loy lamala, the one who's next choshev is above him, and lamala himeno, and shlishi loy lamata himeno, and the shlishi is below. Meaning, we don't communicate with sign language. There's only two people. The gadol is mesa baroyish, the choshev one first, and the second one is below him, so he can talk directly with him. He doesn't have to get up. If there's three, it's true that to communicate with the second would be difficult. If the second one is above him, he would have to get up. But nevertheless, he has the third one is below him. He can communicate directly with the third one, and also chashiva. So the second one is above him. Mayim Rishonim maschil min hagodol. Mayim Rishonim, the first one to wash, is the godol, is the one that's most choshev. Now, the Meforshim point out that is only the case, and some Rishonim hold that's only the case if it's a Suda where each one is a Suda Gedola, each one is washing and eating immediately, so then the Choshev doesn't have to wait. But if they're all going to be Beitseya and one is going to make the Moitzi for all of them, then it's not appropriate for the Godel to sit and wait for the rest of them, then he doesn't do it Baruch. But here we're talking where he's going to eat immediately, so he washes first. My machroinim is man shehem hey, where there's five people, maschilim min hagodol. The godol washes my machroinim first. And before you speak out, he washes first. That, and when there's five people, because now he's not sitting and waiting for a long period of time, but there is a period of time where he can prepare himself for benching. And keep in mind, in those days, they didn't have sidurim and benchers, etc., and therefore things were said about peh. He needed time to prepare himself for the benching. So bisman shehem mei maschil min hagodol, bisman shehem meya, when there's 100 people, maschil min hakotan, the kotans washes first my machroin, ad shemegim etzel hay, till they get to 5, v'chayzer maschil min hagodol, and then the one who is going to bench, the godol, he is now washes amongst the 5, he's the one that washes first. And the one who washes my machroin first amongst the 5, the one who washes my machroin, he's the one that has the honor of benching. The one who washes my machroin first, he is the one that's mechubed, that's honored with benching. Rav also come with the Rebbe. They were sitting in the suit in front of Rebbe. Amalei Rebbe Rav. He said to Rav, Kum Malshi Yada. He said, go wash your hands. Chazia the Kamarasa. So he got nervous that perhaps something wasn't appropriate. His hands weren't clean. Why is he telling him to wash his hands? Amalei Barpach, the son of the noble ones. I don't mean to criticize. What I'm telling you is to wash your hands because you are going to have the kibbut of benching. Wash your hands and prepare yourself for benching. You're going to have be mizamin and might see the other ones, so prepare yourself for benching.